A search operation is continuing for at least 6 people thrown into a river in the US city of Baltimore after this huge container ship collided with a bridge, sending it crashing into the water.
The spillover effect of Israel-Hamas war is widening in the Red Sea. Tensions are escalating in the region with rising attacks from the Yemen-based Houthi rebels.
The U.S. shipping industry has been one of the biggest in the world for about a century. However, after a shocking incident happened to some container ships headed towards the United States in January, the industry has been slowly declining. What happened to those megaships? Will the U.S. shipping industry recover anytime soon? Join us as we unravel the details of the occurrence with the ultra-large container sailing to the U.S. Current state of the U.S. shipping industry. Less than 2 weeks after a big cargo ship crashed and wrecked Baltimore's Francis Scott Key Bridge, another enormous container ship passed under a busy bridge connecting New York and New Jersey. Suddenly, it slowed down in a narrow part of one of the nation's biggest ports. A voice on the radio for ships said, "We're a dead ship," a while later, which means the ship couldn't move by itself. 3 tugboats helped guide the APL Qingdao, a massive ship over 1,100 feet long, from where it stopped near the Bayonne Bridge to a safe spot, authorities said. The ship dropped anchor just up the river from the even busier Verrazzano Narrows Bridge, which has around 200,000 vehicles going over it every day. According to an analysis by the Washington Post of Coast Guard records, the incident on April 5th is one of many where huge cargo ships lost their ability to move, often near bridges and ports. The findings show that the type of breakdown that happened before the Baltimore Bridge collapsed on March 26th, where the 984-foot dolly couldn't move forward due to a widespread power outage, was not uncommon among the increasingly large cargo ships that frequently sail near vital infrastructure. In just Baltimore alone, ships lost their ability to move nearly 20 times in the 3 years leading up to last month's tragedy, as per the Post's investigation. This includes a situation in November 2021 when a 981-foot container ship lost power for 15 minutes shortly after passing under the Key Bridge. In 2020, a ship the same size as the Dolly also lost power near the Bay Bridge close to Annapolis, according to records. Experts note that container ships like the Dolly and the Qingdao have doubled in size over the past 20 years, while some American ports, developed over centuries around busy and tight waterways, have struggled to keep up. Aaron Davenport, a retired senior Coast Guard officer and an expert in maritime safety with the nonprofit research organization RAND, expressed concern about the full impact of these big ships operating in ports. According to the Washington Post's analysis, 424 cargo ships longer than 600 feet reported losing power, meaning their engines stopped, in U.S. waters in the last 3 years. About a quarter of these incidents happened near a port, bridge, or other important structures. The data on power loss was current until March 17th, before the incidents involving the Dolly and the Qingdao. Following reports of the Qingdao incident on social media, the Coast Guard confirmed that the ship had experienced a power loss. In some cases, the Post said that backup engines suddenly stopped working. In others, crews had to shut them down to address operational issues. The owner and operator of the APL Qingdao stated that its engine was turned off in a controlled way after an engine alarm went off, and the ship didn't lose electrical power. In Baltimore, a group of pilots said the Dolly lost both engine and electrical power before crashing into the Key Bridge on March 26th. Jennifer Homendy, the chair of the National Transportation Safety Board, suggested that issues with the electrical system might have caused the ship to lose control. The FBI is investigating whether the crew knew about serious system problems before leaving the port, according to the Post. Coast Guard reports noted several incidents where ships hit things after losing power, like a grain dock in the lower Mississippi River. Other ships were reported to have gotten stuck near structures after losing power. Strangely, this is not the only setback ships have gotten in recent days. Terrorist attack on U.S.-bounded ships. On the 31st of December, 2023 at exactly 6:30 am Yemen time, the container ship Maersk Hangzhou sent out a distress call for the second time in a day, reporting an attack by 4 Houthi small boats, as per the U.S. Central Command. In response to the distress call, CENTCOM stated that the USS Gravely intercepted 2 anti-ship missiles aimed at the Maersk vessel. Helicopters from the Gravely and the USS Eisenhower were then dispatched to assist the Maersk Hangzhou. The U.S. military claims it took out 10 Houthi fighters and sank 3 of their boats after the clash in the Red Sea. Who are the Houthis, and why are they attacking ships? The Houthi movement, also known as Ansar Allah, is a Shia Islamist political and military organization that originated in Yemen in the 1990s. It consists mainly of Zaidi Shia Muslims, with leadership largely drawn from the Houthi tribe. The German initially emerging as opposition to Yemen's President Ali Abdullah Saleh, whom they accused of corruption, and who was supported by Saudi Arabia and the United States. The movement gained momentum under the leadership of religious leader Hussein al-Houthi. After al-Houthi's death in 2004, the movement continued under his brother Abdul Malik al-Houthi. The Houthis participated in the Yemeni revolution of 2011, but later rejected the reconciliation deal. They eventually allied with Saleh and seized control of the capital city, triggering a Saudi-led military intervention. The conflict escalated into a civil war, with the Houthis launching attacks against Saudi Arabia and the UAE. In addition to their domestic agenda, the Houthis have engaged in actions targeting Israel and have conducted attacks in the Red Sea. This move, according to a Houthi spokesperson, aimed to pressure Israel into ending its destructive war and blockade on the Gaza Strip, which has resulted in the deaths of over 21,000 Palestinians. The Houthis began launching drones and missiles toward southern Israel in October. Shortly after the war began on October 7th, their drones were intercepted or failed to reach their targets. Subsequently, the Iran-backed group started attacking ships in the Red Sea that they claimed were linked to Israel. U.S. destroyers, along with a few other nations, have joined forces to stop the Houthi attacks in the Red Sea under Operation Prosperity Guardian. However, some partners have distanced themselves from this initiative. These attacks have disrupted many ships attempting to reach Israel. Despite several countries agreeing to join the U.S.'s Maritime Protection Force, only the United Kingdom has directly contributed warships. This leaves the U.S. effectively facing the Houthis alone. According to Al Jazeera's Rasul Serdar, reporting from Djibouti, the U.S. has been unable to deter the Houthis so far, with the group increasing attacks even more frequently. The latest clash marks a significant escalation as the U.S. not only sank Houthi boats but also killed Houthi fighters. Such confrontations are raising concerns about a regional escalation. The recent clash in the Red Sea was the first significant direct military encounter between the U.S. military and Houthi fighters. Maersk announced that it would halt all sailing through the Red Sea for the next 48 hours after the incident happened. Maersk, along with the German shipping company Hapag-Lloyd, operates nearly a quarter of the world's shipping fleet. Other shipping companies are also taking action in response to the escalating maritime conflict. Evergreen, for example, has temporarily stopped accepting Israeli cargo. Firms such as C.H. Robinson, Evergreen, HMM, Ocean Network Express, Wallenius Wilhelmsen, and Yangming Marine Transport are planning to avoid the Red Sea and increase the number of ships rerouting around Africa's Cape of Good Hope instead of using the Suez Canal. However, this alternative route is longer and more expensive. While these attacks have had a relatively limited impact on the oil market so far, experts speculate that prices could rise if the situation persists. Route followed by megaships. A website named Marine Traffic watches over all these ships by showing where the large container ships are sailing across the oceans. Many of these ships set off from Asia and journeyed across the North Pacific Ocean, following a route that went upwards, called the Great Circle Route. If the world were viewed as a ball instead of a flat map, their routes would be seen more clearly. The map also displays how ships change their routes to steer clear of rough weather. In the midst of all these marine routes, Marine Traffic is particularly keen on keeping track of the massive container ships, those capable of carrying more than 16,000 standard 20-foot containers. They're launching a thorough project to closely monitor and study these enormous ships. This project isn't solely about tallying up ships. It's about comprehending how these large vessels navigate the world and the shifts in their patterns. Currently, there's a significant emphasis on the largest ships out there, known as ultra-large container vessels. These enormous ships typically start their journeys in East Asia and pass through bustling areas like the port of Singapore. Then, they navigate through the narrow Malacca Straits en route to Sri Lanka's Colombo terminal. In the past, these ships followed a rather standard path. They sailed through the Gulf of Aden, passed through the Bab el-Mandab Strait, and proceeded up through the Red Sea to reach the Mediterranean Sea. But things have changed. The conflict with the Houthi group has made this usual route risky. Consequently, many of these immense ships are now opting for a different route. Instead of their usual path, they're congregating in areas like the Persian Gulf and the Red Sea. Some are even attempting to circumvent a blockade near the city of Jeddah. Presently, many of these ships are taking a longer journey around the southern tip of Africa to reach their European destinations, such as Algeciras in Spain or Tangier in Morocco. Additionally, new routes are emerging, guiding these massive ships into various parts of the Mediterranean Sea, with stopovers in places like Genoa in Italy or Piraeus in Greece. Recent data from January shows how the shipping routes from Asia to Europe have shifted, thereby significantly reducing the number of ships that stop in the United States. This data monitors the movements of major shipping alliances, such as the 2M Alliance, comprising prominent companies like Maersk and MSC, and the Ocean Alliance, with COSCO, Evergreen, and CMA-CGM. When we examine the types of ships these alliances employ, we observe some evident trends. For example, the 2M Alliance utilizes some of the largest ships available, accommodating between 19,000 and 24,000 standard containers on their Swan line. On the flip side, the Ocean Alliance operates slightly smaller ships, though they're still sizable, with room for about 12,700 standard containers. These variations in ship sizes and their chosen routes are crucial for understanding the current state and evolving nature of global shipping. Let's delve into how large ships have transformed over time, progressing from small to colossal, and how this impacts the transportation of goods worldwide.
Unidentified small craft. You are now considered a threat to this vessel.
How big is the shipping industry? The transformations in container shipping are significant and crucial. Over time, the vessels transporting containers across the ocean have become much larger. This expansion illustrates the evolution and growth of oceanic travel. John Paul Rodriguez is well versed in global logistics and often discusses the changes in container shipping over time. His studies reflect on how containers revolutionized the movement of goods worldwide. He highlights how, since the 1950s, these ships have undergone substantial changes, particularly with significant developments in the 1970s that further enhanced their importance. Initially, the vessels carrying these containers were termed Panamax ships because they perfectly fit through the Panama Canal locks, constructed in 1944. However, a shift occurred in the late 1980s with the emergence of larger ships, known as post-Panamax. These vessels were too large to pass through the Panama Canal at the time. This alteration was significant as it required a re-evaluation of ship navigation and port operations. Because these ships were becoming so large, ports around the world had to undergo significant changes. They required larger cranes to hoist the containers off the ships, more storage space for all the containers, and deeper water to accommodate the bigger ships without getting stuck. These alterations weren't solely about increasing size. They aimed to enhance the overall efficiency of operations, spanning from the ships themselves to the ports where they dock. The larger ships also necessitated careful planning by port authorities. They had to ensure sufficient space for all the containers and that the tall cranes could reach high enough to unload them. Additionally, since these new ships sit lower in the water compared to the old ones, the routes they take might need adjustments too. All these modifications reflect the ongoing evolution in the realm of transporting goods across oceans. It's not just about the ships growing in size, it's about the entire system adapting to meet the demands of global trade. These massive container ships are also prompting significant improvements in ports worldwide. Since the early 2000s, there has been a massive transformation in the shipping industry with the introduction of very large container ships. These massive ships can carry between 11,000 and 15,000 standard containers, marking a substantial advancement from previous capabilities. Leading the charge in this transformation is the shipping company Maersk, which introduced two new types of ships, the E-Class and the even larger Triple E-Class. These vessels represent a departure from previous designs. They aren't just slightly larger. They represent an entirely new concept in ship construction and operation. The E-Class and Triple E-Class ships are immense, as long as 4 football fields and taller than a skyscraper. They have the capacity to carry significantly more containers than earlier ships, stacked 22 containers wide and 10 high above the deck. Because these ships could carry many more containers, they made it possible to transport goods around the world faster and more affordably. This was fantastic for global trade. However, the immense size of these ships also created complications. They were too large for many ports, so only specific locations in the world could accommodate them. To manage these massive ships, ports had to acquire new, taller cranes and create additional space for storing containers. They also had to enhance other areas of the port to handle the extra cargo these ships brought. At the same time, a significant project was underway in Panama. In the mid-2000s, they began a massive initiative to expand the Panama Canal, known as the Panama Canal Expansion Project. Its goal was to prepare the canal for larger ships. They constructed new locks that were larger and more efficient than the old ones. This was a monumental undertaking because it meant that larger ships could travel between the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans much more smoothly than before. Moreover, it wasn't just the Panama Canal receiving upgrades. The Suez Canal, another crucial waterway, was also undergoing expansion to accommodate these enormous ships. By 2015, both canals had undergone updates and were prepared for the new, larger vessels. This alteration allowed ships to follow different paths across the globe, making worldwide shipping quicker and more effective. The larger canals, similar to the new ships, altered the movement of goods around the world, contributing to a more interconnected global economy than ever before. We witness how new, even larger ships are transforming travel through well-known water routes, making a significant impact on how we move goods. How many goods can ultra-large containers carry? After the Panama Canal got bigger, a brand new type of ship arrived in 2014 called Neo-Panamax ships. They're roughly 366 meters long and were designed to fit through the expanded Panama Canal. This change was a major deal for global shipping. Now, the canal can handle much larger ships than before, some capable of carrying over 12,500 standard shipping containers, and some can even carry up to 15,000. But there's more to the story. Around the mid-2010s, something even larger occurred. Maersk, a prominent shipping company, introduced a new class of ship called the Triple E class. These massive vessels can carry 18,000 containers. And just when people adjusted to those, the shipping world was surprised yet again. New ships called Megabox 24s started appearing, and they're enormous. They can transport between 20,000 and 24 containers. These ships are about 400 meters long, 61 meters wide, and sit 16 meters deep in the water. These supersized ships represent a significant advancement in shipbuilding and usage. What does the future of American ports look like? Maersk, one of the largest companies in the world for moving containers on ships, is advocating for improved port facilities in the United States. They're a massive company with ships traveling worldwide, and they require ports to operate seamlessly to transport goods between countries smoothly. Other major shipping companies, such as Mediterranean Shipping, share the same view. They recognize the significance of investing in port enhancements to remain competitive in global shipping. Enhancing the ports in the U.S. involves more than just digging deeper harbors to accommodate larger ships. It also includes raising bridges so that huge ships can pass through easily and updating the areas where they load and unload containers. This requires upgrading equipment and technology to ensure goods can be moved quickly and efficiently. However, it's not only about the water and docks, it's also about ensuring that once goods are offloaded from the ship, they can reach their destinations smoothly. This involves improving roads and railways leading away from the ports. Improving ports in the U.S. is really important for many reasons. Firstly, it makes it easier for goods to move around, which is great for businesses and shoppers. But it's also about keeping pace with other countries. They're upgrading their ports, so the U.S. needs to do the same to stay competitive. Better ports can also lead to more trade and investment, creating jobs and boosting the economy, especially in port cities. So, there's a big need for a well-planned, ongoing strategy to get U.S. ports ready for today's and tomorrow's large ships. This can't happen overnight. It requires a lot of planning, money, and effort, but the benefits can be huge in terms of increased trade, more jobs, and a stronger economy. Additionally, there's an interesting aspect of port operations called a water shuttle. This involves moving water to different trucks. While it might seem unrelated, it's actually part of the bigger plan to ensure ports and their surroundings have the right infrastructure. This includes managing waste, dealing with runoff water, and preventing pollution from the port from affecting the local area. It's all about making sure ports not only function well for ships and cargo, but also remain good neighbors to nearby residents. But there's a significant issue when a massive tanker arrives at a port and disrupts everything. The cranes used to move containers from the ship to the shore must be very large to reach the containers on board. When ships as massive as the Ever Ace dock, they bring along so many containers that it can overwhelm the port's capacity to handle them all at once. This means the port requires a considerable amount of equipment and space to manage these containers. Major shipping companies like Mediterranean Shipping, Maersk, and Evergreen are urging ports in the United States to invest more money in upgrading their facilities. Doing so would help alleviate congestion on busy routes between Europe and Asia and facilitate smoother movement of goods. However, addressing this issue isn't solely the responsibility of one party. It's a substantial task that requires collaboration among ports, the government, and shipping companies. Everyone must contribute to the construction and maintenance of ports capable of accommodating the largest ships. Ships like the Ever Ace and the Maersk E-Class are incredibly large. They're over 400 meters long and can carry more than 20,000 containers. Because of their size, they require special equipment and plenty of space at ports just to unload. Investing in ports is extremely important. Without the right docks, cranes, and other equipment, these massive ships can't dock properly, disrupting global trade routes. But it's not just about the big things, it's also about ensuring ports function better overall. This involves ensuring smooth entry and exit for trucks and trains, enhancing security, and safeguarding the environment around the ports. On a larger scale, when a huge ship arrives, it's like a small town floating into the harbor. The amount of goods it brings is immense. This can benefit businesses and shoppers, but only if the port can swiftly move those goods. If the port isn't prepared, the goods just sit there, leading to delays and extra expenses. Moreover, it's not just about moving goods faster. It's also about ensuring safety and environmental protection. As ships become larger, ports must be even more cautious about factors like tides and weather. A large ship caught in a severe storm or stranded due to insufficient water depth can cause significant problems, not only for the port, but also for supply chains worldwide. Businesses are in a hurry to make their operations faster and cheaper. They aim to move goods more quickly, save money on fuel, and handle cargo more efficiently. While these goals can bring benefits like reduced time and costs, they also raise some significant concerns. One major worry is that the largest companies might gain too much control over the shipping industry. There's debate about whether we should continue building increasingly larger ships, especially since these huge vessels might start avoiding popular routes like the Suez Canal and instead take longer trips around Africa. If this happens, we might see even larger ships capable of carrying even more cargo. However, building ships of this size presents its own challenges. This involves exploring different transportation methods, determining the best ways to maintain sufficient stock, and using new technology to monitor goods continuously. The aim of these companies is to create supply chains that are not only efficient, but also resilient and adaptable. They want to be prepared for anything, whether it's adverse weather, political issues, or other unforeseen circumstances. They're devising methods to quickly recover from any problems so they can maintain smooth operations regardless of the situation. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video.